Well, thank you so much for being part of the show, Paris.
Thank you
I am
for
really
having me.
excited to talk to you. We've been looking forward to having you on the show. I think the world needs to hear your story and
Oh,
just the transgender experience.
yeah,
So hopefully we can demystify some of this for our viewers and our listeners.
definitely.
So, as you know, this show is all about mental health and
Mhm.
destigmatization and bringing awareness to the streets. So, I want to ask you, have you ever been to therapy?
I have.
Okay.
So I started when I first came out. When I first came out, though, I came out as gay.
Okay.
So I was 11 years old,
Wow.
so very young when I came out.
Yeah.
So
Very brave.
just to make sure I had a smooth transition into it, though, I went into therapy when I was 12.
Wow. And
Just
that
to
was
have
your
something.
idea?
What's that? No, that was between, so my mom used the San Diego LGBT Community Center as a reference point for a lot of my coming out adjustments.
Okay.
So they asked like if there's certain things that I'm not comfortable talking about with my mom and my family, it's always a nice way to just have, light therapy. It was once a month, as opposed to, like sometimes once a week or anything like that. Now
Yeah.
that I'm older, that's what I do. Um, but yeah, 12 years old, and it was just a nice way to ask the questions, and because it was also
Explore.
a LGBTQ specified therapist. So
Yes, which is
yeah,
very important,
it
right?
is when it's something like that's such a specific situation. I think it is very important that you kind of find the pinpoint and
Yeah,
um, go to the right person. Definitely. 'Cause
absolutely.
even when I was transitioning into female, I had to switch my therapist because my therapist was based on LGBTQ youth. Now I needed a therapist that knew about gender identity and gender expression and transitioning. So
Absolutely.
everything's like so specific. I
Yeah.
mean, and then in my professional life now as an adult, like I go to a therapist just to be able to um, properly handle the pressures of my professional life. Now that's a person that's separate from my gender identity specialist. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
So you really embraced this whole therapy
I
landscape. Love
do.
it.
I do. It took a second for my I think I'm from a culture of hide your feelings
Hmm.
and
Or eat your
and
feelings.
eat your feelings, hide your feelings, and hide it gracefully and with your chin up, and don't be overtly emotional. Don't be um, hyper crazy and mad or anything like that. Like it was very
Controlled.
keep it to yourself. Yeah, very controlled.
Hmm.
So once I saw that it was something that was very beneficial to me, I kind of embraced it and really looked into it.
Yeah.
I even considered I was, I think I was only like 15 at the time, but I was like, maybe I'm going to become a psychiatrist. I'm going to be a psychologist. I'm going to do this.
That would be amazing because there's a
I think,
huge need for
I think
people
so,
like
but
you to
I
be
think
part
it
of
takes
the team.
a very special person to do it. To
I'm like,
fully, yes, girl, I'm telling you. I mean, I'm slightly that now for a lot of the youth programs that I work with. I'm kind of a diary for a lot of my younger
and you're
kids
such an
that I'm around.
advocate and mentor,
Yeah, but
leader
you
in
know,
the community.
but I've learned, like, I was like, wow, sometimes it's a lot to carry
Yes.
when you hear everybody's
Stories.
situation and stories and everything. So I'm like, maybe it's a good route that we went more towards fashion design. Yeah, I can just make people
Exactly.
dress pretty.
You'll probably get paid better too. Just saying.
Oh, no.
Well, what did you expect, when you first started seeing a therapist, right? What did you expect? And then throughout your transition into adulthood, would you say that most of your experiences have been rewarding and positive as
Um,
far as therapy?
as far as that, okay. So beginning was, I think I knew therapy from TV. You
Uh,
know how on in television they would have you lay on the long couch, and then the therapist isn't even really looking at you. They're just kind of asking, going through the motions. And so I thought that I was going to go into something and I'll ask questions, and then this person will give me answers, like specific answers.
Just
And
tell you
then,
what to do.
yeah, tell me what to do. And I'm going to be like, got it. Okay, so this upcoming week, I'm gonna do what you said. Like that was just from what I saw from television and movies.
Yes, you're right, though. That is how it's portrayed.
Yeah, and I was like, at a very young age, I was like, oh, it's so not like that.
Yeah.
Like how weird, because I saw that in my situation, I was being asked more questions rather than being answered.
Or be
Um,
old.
Answered for, yeah, than
Yeah.
being told for. So, I answered more questions that I had for myself,
Yeah.
ra which I thought was one of the most fascinating things, and that at a really young age, I mean, 12, 13 years old, had me m really like, "Whoa, okay, the answers are there." There's just a very different way uh, of processing it, which I'm sure every person is a very different situation. But I was like, I just needed to get to the answer, so it was a step program to my answer, and
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, great.
So
Um,
empowering, right?
yeah, no, because you know when you we don't like not knowing.
Right.
Okay. Like, I don't think anybody likes not knowing. Everybody can say like, "Oh, I love learning." Of course we love learning, but we really don't like not knowing.
Yep.
So, when you get into a space where now me knowing is within my control,
Hmm.
oh, I'm good. Okay. Like there's a step for me to get there. Rad. Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a growth mindset, and it's
Mhm.
also about self-awareness, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what therapists really help people with,
Mhm.
is to facilitate your own connection to your wisdom and your inner knowing. So I'm
Totally.
glad that that's the experience you had.
And then going into, I think, my more, I mean, it's not quite adult yet, but it was during the time I feel like I transitioned into my adulthood as well when I transitioned.
Yeah,
So that was at 16.
true. Yep.
And the conversations were a lot different then
Yeah.
because now it was on processing what I've already felt for a very, 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 very long time
Yep.
and figuring out what my, why my, because for me personally, I wanted to know why my decisions were becoming my decisions, especially when it comes to something that it was like more on physical, that
Yeah.
we are going to go through hormone therapy, we're going to go through this, we're going to go through that. Am I doing these
Big
decisions
decision.
because,
Man.
yes, because there's such large decisions? I was like, I want to know what brought me to these decisions.
Yes. And you had to be really
Yeah.
clear,
Yes.
right?
And I wanted, because I've been around a lot of youth groups where, um, in someone else's situation, they didn't transition early enough by like by their requirement for themselves and for their body, and
Yes.
then in some other situation they didn't transition properly for them and the way that they wanted to transition
Right.
and move forward with their gender identity. And then in another situation is this person didn't want to transition at all. They felt they were more on the non-binary spectrum, so they got pigeon
Oh,
held into uh transitioning, where it's like you're going from male to female or female to male,
yeah.
not realizing that they also had an option of being non-binary or gender non-conforming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I already had a lot of those conversations, so by the time I got to this decision making point of, this is who we are, girl.
Yeah.
We're gonna this is how we're looking, this is how we're gonna go, and
Yep.
this looks like the direction. But I also just wanted to know how I landed at that
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and so walk us through that, because you said you came out as gay, and
Mhm.
then you discovered, I don't know what the process was between gay and coming out as a transgender. Uh,
So
Walk us through
so
that process.
here was my so if we're gonna let's go on the terms first.
Yes.
I came out as bisexual, which only lasted for a week, and then I came out as gay.
Okay.
So I think for my personal story,
Yep.
my finding myself always had padding.
Okay.
It always had like a way of easing, like taking little steps into the water,
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
Because I already had known way before that that I'm a girl. I had known this
Easing
from,
into it.
yes. And also I was trying to make sure everybody around me was comfortable while moving forward with me.
Yeah.
Because I come from a very accepting family and a very open family. So I was trying to make sure everybody's going to be, comfortable with this.
Yeah. Yeah. You were also trying to make sure they're adjusting comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, at the end of the day, they're also coming out with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I knew I could have gone about it just one and done. Hey, this is me. Accept me. Love me. I am yours. You are mine. I love you. You love me. I know I could have done that. I didn't know. I know that now.
Yeah.
I did not know that then.
Yes.
So, I mean, knowing full well, 6 years old, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And all of this does not match
At
what's in
6 years
here
old.
and what's in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had
Because
to.
it wasn't like I've been asked by college students sometimes when I go in to speak, "W- how did you know, like how do you know at such a young age?" And I was like, here's the thing, we're defined by our sexuality based on who we love, right?
Or your
I
genital
knew,
organs. Or your
yeah,
genital organs
yeah,
at birth,
I,
right?
yeah. So, but I was at, I mean, 6 years old, I thought boys had cooties. I thought girls were fun. Like, but not just with like, oh, girls are fun, pink, and all this stuff. It's not that. There was such something specific about a feminine energy and
That you really
female,
identified with.
presence that I gravitated to
Yeah.
automatically, and I felt at home with more than I do with a male presence, even if that male person is a gay male like my uncle
Mhm.
or a a loved one like my two older brothers who were so loving and protective towards me even as a little kid. They were good to me, but I still felt a lot more positive energy and positive presence and an uplifting presence being around female energy. So
Yeah.
that's how I explain it. That I'm like, it has nothing. My gender identity has nothing to do with who I love.
Mhm.
First, it also has nothing to do with um, just the presentation.
Mhm. Mhm.
Of course, the presentation is a part of it, but it's not the whole, full thing of it.
Yeah.
So, 11 years old. Hi, hey guys. Um, because my mom, the way I came out was very specific. It was kind of through a specific situation. Long story though, but um, my mom and my sister said, "You're gay. It's okay." Like, because they were worried about me and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I went back to them a couple of days later and I was like, I think I like girls and boys.
Mhm.
So yeah. And they're like, okay. And they kind of just went. So I actually went in to try to make everybody feel comfortable. Like, hey, at the time, he is gonna, oh, he still likes both boys and girls. Okay, cool. Maybe that was like my thinking process.
Mhm.
They didn't believe it. They did not. So a week later, and I was like, no, mom, ate, which is what we call our older sisters in Tagalog. I
Yep.
was like, I'm I'm gay. Yeah. But even before saying that, I wanted to say, no, mom, ate, I'm a girl.
It takes a lot of courage to do that, you know?
I mean, even to say it to myself took
Yeah,
a very,
especially
a
back
very long
then.
time. Yeah, girl.
Feels so much more stigmatized, right?
Hmm.
So,
And the education and the presence for it
yeah.
was not there. Um, my, I always believe that education comes from a reference point.
Hmm.
Okay, so my friends get very annoyed at me when I answer invasive questions that somebody asks me in a bar setting, like when somebody asks me about my personal, life in a bar setting. And I always try to explain to them, this might be one in the few chances this person is going to be able to have this conversation with at least somebody who's willing to educate.
Yes.
So if this person saw me and thought, oh my gosh, I've never met somebody who's transgender before, I want to know, I have a question.
Yes. You welcome it.
Well, yeah, I welcome it. It's not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not going to ask it in the most appropriate way. But I think that if somebody approaches a conversation with good intentions, I'm not going to cut them off.
Yeah.
So I
Amazing.
always welcome it.
Yeah. That's really amazing. That's why
Yep.
you're on the show, you know? You're continuing
But
to do this work really of trying to advance the cause for your community.
yeah. But I mean, so yeah, education is from a reference point. Me at, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old, God forbid my mother sees this. Um, my reference point for trans people were Jerry Springer.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
My reference point for trans people were the slapstick comedians in Filipino television.
Yes.
We're here. My learning point was, we're here for your entertainment,
Yep.
mm, but I'm not here to live. Not here to live within you and next to you. You
Yeah.
know.
I'm gonna be on the
Um,
fringe all my life.
yes, and I'm gonna be uh, laughed at, yelled at, called names. When the host of any of those show, like Sally Jesse Raphael, um,
Yeah.
all those daytime shows, that's where you would see a lot of trans people. And you would see the people in the audience saying, you're not this, that, and can you imagine at that age that that's your reference point?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, wait, am I that person? Because that person was born a boy, but now she's a girl, but then they treat her like that. Oh, like, so what a that's a very icky reference point to have.
Yeah, and the psychological effects of that. I think
Yeah.
that's why, right? Mental health rates, depression rates, suicide rates are high for, your s- population or your
Yeah.
group because of our misunderstanding and
Yes.
our miseducation. So what do you think is one of your most hated stereotype about trans people?
I'm not sure. I see. This is when the whole mental health, everything comes into play as well. I think I see so much stereotypes, and I see so much, or I am uh, called so many stereotypes, or I am referenced to as so many stereotypes. I've learned to flip it and embrace the stereotypes that we're surrounded by. Um, a large stereotype for the transgender community, mainly male to female community, is that everybody is a sex worker.
Mm,
Um, and I'm like, you know what? If she is doing this for herself and she is fully in control of her body and her decisions and everything that she's doing, go for it, girl. Do it. So, because before I was like, oh my gosh, like not everybody's a prostitute, like not everybody's and it was such a thing for me. And this was me at like 17 or 18. But then I was like, ew, I'm adding to that stereotype of like, what's so wrong about being positive about sex work and positive about uh body and a person owning their body, fully owning their body, you know? So that was one of those that I had to change for myself. That um
So you just
that
basically, kind of give people the right to choose the path that they see
yeah,
for them. Yeah.
yeah. I as long as it's a personal choice,
Mhm.
nobody's making the choices for you, I will fully support you and cheer you on, girl.
Mhm.
Like not hurting yourself, being safe and being self-aware
Right.
and going about it, making sure that you are healthy,
Mhm.
making mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Um, while you're going at it, go for it. You
I didn't
know?
realize that was still such a big stereotype. I thought we were
Yeah.
past that point.
Mhm. No.
Maybe
And,
in Asia, but I
yeah,
didn't think.
right.
Yeah.
No, here even more so. I mean, even now, with the whole social media lifestyle that a lot of um, us have, a lot of the girls are more, are escorting and doing these things, but it's so looked down upon, like, with a lot of the transgender girls on Instagram that they're doing these things like, oh, what are you making? Some people in my community are saying, like, oh, what are you making our community look like? And I'm like, well, she's doing her thing, leave her alone. And then there's also another group of people who are like, haha, we're making all of our money and doing our thing for ourselves. You're working a 9 to 5. So it becomes a back and forth that we like hold each other to. And I'm like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
I'm like, let people do their thing, do what works for them, and
Yeah.
call it a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
like
I hope,
this kind of external pressure to sh-
yeah,
to show up as a group in a wholesome way,
yeah,
because of maybe all the things you guys have had to endure. But I'm glad that you're finding your own independent voice within
definitely,
your
yeah.
community. Yeah.
Because I mean, oh, it was a very weird introduction. I was receiving a recognition for something, and the person who is a community member, lovely enough, she talked about me being classy, and it rubbed me the wrong way because I was like, oh, wait. So I really hope that my having a voice, my having access to educating people or to receiving education isn't based on the way that I carry myself, because the way that I carry myself is within the standards of what people find acceptable.
Yep. You're
And
like
I'm like,
you're a socially acceptable trans.
yeah, I'm like, oh, I don't like that. Like, it's like it never sat well with me, and that's when I had to take it fully off my radar that any form of class, social
Classism.
status,
Yeah.
system, or um, financial access, health access, anything. Like, I don't think any part of somebody's life should be decided upon based on the access they have and the class status that they live.
Great
So,
point. Such a
yeah.
great point. You're such a big critical thinker. It's really
Everything is always broken down for me.
I can
Like,
tell. I can tell. You've done a lot of work.
oh, I don't know though. And we're still doing a lot of work, honey.
Yes,
It's
yes. It never really
work in
ends.
progress. Yes.
Yeah, the quality of our problems just change. So what do you say about to people who view transgenderism as a mental health disorder, as some kind of mental health, illness? What do you say to what do you want to say to those?
Um, I so I understand to an extent because in in, you know, decades ago, or actually not even decades ago, just
I
like
know we
years
did
ago,
diagnose it as a
just
disorder,
years ago.
and then we finally woke up and changed.
Our community was diagnosed as a disorder and a mental health disorder. Um, and then, like you said, you woke up and found more education to it and found more research to it, and then that changed. To people who think that now, I'm not going to tell you to think one way or the other. I am just going to hope that you are willing enough, that if you're willing enough to determine something about somebody, that you're also willing enough to educate yourself.
Mhm, mhm.
Hopefully, before you just make those determinations.
Right.
But if you have made those determinations, but you know in your mind you can't fully support it just based off of being told that, oh wait, that's a crazy person,
Yep.
then I hope that you would educate yourself.
Yeah. I still get asked that question in the Filipino community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not there yet
Yeah.
as a culture. Even
Yeah.
though the irony is, I grew up around transgender.
Uh-huh.
It's so common in the Philippines, right?
It's very common, but we also have a culture of uh with very religious views. So
Yes.
um I think calling something a mental health disorder kind of um, uh, comforted them
Mm-hmm.
to be able to say that, oh, yes, um, the version of the Bible that I read is correct.
Yes.
Like, because now the scientists are saying it too. So, and like in our world, it's either scientists or, so yeah, like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you say? It brings me to my next point.
Mhm.
What do you say to people, especially our religious, friends and families, that this is a sin, that this is not what God, designed human beings to be?
Yeah.
That's one
So,
of the things that really hurt my heart when I hear that.
oh, yeah. It still hurts, I
Mm.
will say, because I have family, I have extended family who have their views on that. And um but I mean, even outside of just Filipino, but with anybody with religious views, period.
Yeah.
I Anytime I've been approached with that, like I've spoken in a college, in a very Catholic college, during their Pride Week. And I made it an open forum that people can ask me questions, any questions, and there's no judgment as to any questions that they ask. And I've been asked about, like, hey, like, this is a sin, da 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 da. This is wrong. You shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't be this way. That, back and forth. I had to kind of look at it and back up a little bit and explain your standards and your beliefs, your what do you call it? What you find as sins, like all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Apply it to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't apply your beliefs and your standards to me. I also had to explain, like, we
Great.
also all don't pray to the same person,
Yeah.
the same God, to the same um, spiritual leader. We all don't do that same person. So how are you going to apply your standards of living to other people if
Great.
we have the same
If
spiritual
we have
leader?
the same God. Yeah.
So I that was a fun back and forth with this person,
Love it.
and they were trying to explain that they wanted me to go to heaven, and I was like, "Uh, that is beautiful, and I thank you. That's a great thing, and that's a great loving thing that you want for other people. What if your heaven's qualification list at the door is different than my heaven's qualification list at the door, So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I try to break things down for anyone who's religious.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That's
know
beautiful.
um I I wasn't that graceful about it when I was younger, because I would get very frustrated with my aunts who were very religious, or my mother's friends who refused to acknowledge me
Mm-hmm.
because of who I am and what I am. Um, but then before, I would start gossiping with my mom and be like, okay, for her to talk that way, and then her daughter is da 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 da, and then I try to like flip the script type of thing, and I was like, gosh, that's horrible. Like I just slut shamed somebody else in order to try and have myself accepted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is like thinking about that now as an adult, I'm like, how horrible. Like, oh
And
my god.
so many people still do that, right?
Oh yeah, no.
I
Yeah.
I think your level of self-acceptance and self-love is really what helps you stay gracious and compassionate,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
Well, so I don't think anybody's going to listen to any form of education if it comes from you're a bigot
right.
or you're being
Or if
transphobic.
people are being lectured,
Uh-huh.
right?
I don't think any, because once somebody is labeled or called, just for my example, oh, you're transphobic. Do you think the person that I call transphobic is listening to anything I'm trying to educate them from now on? Now all they're thinking is that, oh my gosh, this person just called me a bigot and da 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 da. Who are they to tell me who I am? Da 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 da.
Right. It
So now
just
all
creates
this
more
noise,
disconnect.
yeah, all this noise is going in through this person's brain, and not a single thing that I'm explaining or trying to educate them to, or trying to have them be on a good level with me
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
that is not going in there.
No, and you bring a great point, which is one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is the current state of the world, right? There's so much animosity and violence going around, and a lot of this, you're the bigot, no, you're the bigot, no,
Uh,
you're right, and you're wrong, no, you're wrong, right? Like from a psychological perspective, that never works
it
because
really.
you're right. It just creates more defense mechanisms.
Hmm.
And then you're really not going to be open to what
Yeah,
the other person is saying because you just feel attacked and
yeah.
invalidated, you know? So how has the current situation in our country, if at all, affected you and you think affected your community?
Um, well, I mean, a lot of things I think when it comes to politics, directly affects us,
Yeah.
our community, and of course, like the extended part of the LGBTQIA community at large. Because what happens with politics is that for politicians to sometimes reach a certain demographic, they have to be agreeable onto those people's beliefs.
Hmm.
So having a transgender military ban makes it seem like this president is respecting of Christianity and religion, when really it's a person who wants to serve the country. Like it's a whole nother thing. So,
Yeah.
you know,
But I'm glad you're staying open to all of that.
yeah, yeah. But I watch it and I kind of process it. Um, what I saw better with from a lot of my trans community elders that have come long before me, and what they do is they see transgender military ban, and then they go to this side and go, what are the actual things that's needed for us to do so that this doesn't happen,
Hmm.
or that we can overturn this or block this.
Hmm.
So that's where my brain goes now, because with everything so crazy
Hmm.
and just kind of really aggressive back and forth, it's like super aggressive. I
Yeah.
found my area where I can go and support my community effectively. One, because I'm not shouting back and forth with some random person on the internet,
Right.
and so effectively and timely.
Yes.
I learned, okay, so
And
this is what's happening.
kindly. And
Uh,
kindly.
yes, and
So
kindly.
much kindness.
Like there's no, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna judge somebody for their religious reviews.
Right.
I am gonna not allow them to apply those views to me,
Yep.
but I'm
But you
not gonna
still respect their right
to
to
have
have their views.
go for
Yeah.
it. Believe. I want you to believe. I want you to have something that's going to make you look forward and make you feel like make you be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Don't apply it to me.
Yeah.
um,
I love it.
yeah. So
Here's my bubble.
right. I mean, unless
That's
unless
healthy.
you're going to apply love, kindness, health, keep it.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what's missing
Hmm.
in our country right now is this, the ability to say, you know what? It's cool. We don't have to agree, but we can still respect each other.
Yeah.
That's what's missing these days,
Yeah.
you know?
It's a term tossed around quite a bit, but it's such a simple word. Coexist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what a concept.
Yeah. And I think John McCain talked a lot about that. Like,
Huh?
can we disagree without hating each other?
Yeah.
You know, we've kind of lost our way there for now. So as far as the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
how has the pandemic affected you personally and your community?
Um, that one that's been a difficult one because a lot of so specifically to my trans community,
Hmm.
a lot of our youth programs, a lot of our sessions, our group sessions and support groups and everything is done physically in group, in motion, and
That organic connection.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult challenge for me to hold my youth programs, which mind you, these are gay, lesbian, transgender, non-binary kids as
Mm,
young as 7. Okay, so that's from my youngest group of youth programs. So I have a 7 to 12.
wow.
Okay, so to have them do a Zoom call or a Zoom meeting, and when we do our check-ins, or they can schedule with me on my email that, hey, can we FaceTime, da 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 da, and then we'll FaceTime.
Yep.
That was very difficult during this time because sometimes those kids also just want to have inner communications with each other, with their group mates,
Hmm.
not as a group as a whole, not what they're saying is being put out to the whole group as a whole.
Yeah.
So that was something very difficult for them to adjust with. And
Yeah.
it a little bit broke my heart. One of my um, lesbian uh, group kids lives with her grandmother.
Mhm.
Her grandmother is not technologically savvy.
Yeah.
So that was also a difficult thing. So we were like, find an iPad, we'll write out the directions, and then we'll do a drop off at their house. Then like,
We'll give her tech support.
like we don't like we just because we were just like, "Oh, we have to figure out how to do this," because then she was only able to do it through audio through her grandmother's phone. She wasn't able to be in the screen with everybody else, and
Yeah.
think we were like, after that first one, we were like, we need to do something. So everything honestly has been a challenge, but again, silver lining to everything. This is when we find how creative we can be with
Yeah.
everything. And we can also find
How determined
some-
you.
or determined we are. But I appreciated our LGBTQ community, our Hillcrest community, that much more
Yeah.
through all of this. We
Yeah.
had the best food programs, um, food pickup programs for all of our nightlife and bar restaurant employees, because that's what a lot of our community thrives on. We had food delivery programs throughout the whole thing for all of our hospice and our gay senior housing centers.
That's so
We had our children's food programs for pickup and delivery with the center. So nobody was left behind throughout all of this
Community
pandemic.
really got,
Yeah,
banded together and
and
rose to the
really
occasion.
pulled this through. Even our homeless community, specifically in Hillcrest, we were still able to do a lot of our handouts and our food programs for it. So it was like, this is when you get to see how extended and how strong a community can be when we're going through things,
Yeah.
you know. And then on top of it, like you know, I usually don't perform for my youth programs. When I hang out with them, usually we're playing board games
Yeah.
and we're talking, through things and whatnot. My performance life is mainly through my nightlife, my more adult life.
Yeah.
So when I'm at bars and clubs performing in drag,
Yeah.
so I was able to do a nice video that I recorded in my backyard of like a bunch of my Disney characters that I did, and I was able to send that out to my youth kids. And now, for the first time, a lot of them got to watch me perform, and I was like, "How does that not happen before?" But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a whole thing for them to be able to see me be a performer.
That's
So they saw
amazing.
me, and they saw me with my different hat on. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, literally, like you wear so many different hats. It's hard to sometimes integrate them all.
Yeah. So
But
it was nice. I found very good positive things throughout
yes,
this thing,
yes. Yeah, that's really, I call this the survival of the adaptable, the
Uh-huh.
survival of the creatives,
Yeah.
because we're all experiencing the impact, but some people are going to thrive and some people are
Mhm.
going to get really depressed, unfortunately,
Yeah.
you know. So, how important is the Hillcrest community, you think, to your mental health?
For me specifically, I grew up in it.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Hillcrest. I mean, from the time I came out, it was Hillcrest. So um that's where I found um my healthy reference points to
Hmm.
myself,
Hmm.
to being transgender.
Hmm.
That's where I saw transgender people
In a positive
live,
light.
yeah, live full, healthy lives and be professionals, but also be entertainers, but be advocates for the community, but also be fundraisers for the community. Also, that's where I saw the good side of trans. This is where every negative reference point I got from Jerry Springer went out the door. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna be just fine.
Yes,
We're good.
yes, yes.
So there alone is that. And then now, um, for a really long time, I was mainly only entertaining. And as much as I love being an entertainer, I also needed purpose.
Yes.
And I've always known that I was like, no, we want to live a purposeful life.
Yeah.
So Hillcrest recircled back to me. I was like, Hillcrest gave so much to me. Now we can give back now.
Oh,
Because
that's
now we're in a space that we can give back.
yes.
We're in a good um, physical health, mental health, um, professional life space that we can start being able to give back. So
That's
that's
beautiful.
where that conversation started. And then now, just for this year alone,
Yeah.
with the craziness of the past couple of years, to find your community that, you know, a lot of times we just want yes people.
Mm-hmm.
We want people who are going to agree with us and have our same beliefs and all this stuff. And a lot of times that is what Hillcrest is,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
like as a gay community, we can become very cliquey
Yeah.
and be like, yeah, Trump is horrible, da 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 da, da da da. You know, outside of the conversations with those words in it, I also saw the community side where it was like, because we're going through this, come here and give me a hug. Come here and hold me. I will hold you through this. You will hold me through this. We're going to make it through this. And we're going to make sure that our sisters and our brothers don't get left behind.
Right.
We're going to be fine,
Regardless of political affiliation,
regardless of
hopefully,
political.
right?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of
So,
conservative uh, gay people as well,
yeah,
you know?
there's a lot of conservative trans people,
Hmm.
you know. I just like religion, everyone's beliefs are their beliefs and they believe their things, certain thing. I don't think any part of body, mind, heart, who you are is going to really determine, like you can be gay, but that's not going to determine whether or not you
Your political
are
affiliation.
religious or not,
Yes.
or you're political or not, or you're,
I think that's one of the assumptions on the streets, right?
is
That,
that
you
gay
know,
folks are automatically liberal. I'm like, you'll be surprised, darling.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a community just like any other community, my love. Like,
exactly. So you are partner and GM of Inside Out, is that
yeah,
correct?
Inside Out San Diego.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
how do you think, Inside Out fits into your life?
Inside Out was so I've always been entertainer, but I was always entertainer where I was very business minded.
Hmm.
So I was one of the few more local entertainers. I travel and all that stuff, but I made sure that right when I started doing it full time, that I had a retirement. I made sure that I had um, insurance. I made sure I had my own cabaret license so that I can perform anywhere and not have to worry about having an entertainment license. I made sure, like my mind was always in business.
Yeah. Smart.
When I started doing well and working very regularly as an entertainer, I made sure to get myself my manager. I got my publicist and marketing. So it was automatic to me. I was like, I knew that if I'm going to do this as a profession, I have to treat it like a profession.
Right.
Because
And
a lot
have
of
the
times
right
what
team.
happens, yeah, what happens a lot with drag entertainment is that a lot of times it gets treated like a hobby,
Right.
when in actuality, a lot of these girls that treat it like a hobby are making the money of people working full-time jobs or regular 9 to 5 jobs, if not more.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't handle this properly, you could be this money could be moving out as easily as it's moving in.
Yeah.
And the other known fact about entertainment is you can't do this forever.
Hmm.
So
You got to be smart.
you have to be smart about it and you have to have an end game. Now, with that, because I went to design school. I design clothes and I make my gowns and all that stuff. I used to do bridal design full time before I took on entertaining full time. So I was like, okay, so I have to think about for business and all this stuff. But I really stopped liking designing full time
Hmm.
because I felt like my creativity was so forced.
Yeah.
It became very like, no, you have to make this, you have to do this, you have to, yeah.
Yeah.
So then later on, entertainment, I turned 30. I was like, okay, where are we going at with the rest and how are we going to move forward with
Yeah.
this? I've always wanted to own my own restaurant, bar, nightclub. Eventually, I'm going to have a bar and a nightclub. Um,
You heard it
so
here.
it was, yeah. So it was a good merge of everything.
Yeah.
That's how
Of your
it
talent.
kind of fit into me.
Interest.
It
Yeah.
was me being able to take my creative side,
Yep.
my social side, my
Business
entertainment
side.
side, and then my business side, and then my community, because that is the first and foremost thing that I make sure everybody fully understands before you walk in through my doors, is that this is the LGBTQ place. So this is our safe space.
Yes. Yes.
You, as an ally, are coming here as a guest.
Yes.
Be respectful of each other while you're here. Like I try to make sure that, because we do have a lot of straight people who just see that we're a restaurant
Yeah.
and they'll come and visit, not knowing that it's like a LGBTQ owned establishment. and then they will see somebody who is trans sitting at the bar and stare or think, and I have to, and I never mind to, but I'm like, hey, my love, let's just, leave,
Tone it down.
let's make sure everybody's a little more comfortable, okay?
Yeah,
If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
love it.
And then, so just so that I move that away, because I, I like my regular group of trans people that come to Inside Out is 10 people. 7 of them transition very late in life.
Yeah.
So they're much older.
Mm-hmm.
So their appearance is different than someone who transitions super young. So when they find a space that they're comfortable fully presenting themselves in, I want to make sure that we maintain that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our staff is fully educated on properly addressing pronouns, properly addressing someone, not using gender specific terms with anything, just so that we're not pigeonholing anybody,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know what their story is.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great public service, really, you're doing.
It's worked out so well for us, because we do have, like, I try not to put myself as the only face to the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of things and a lot of people that went into the restaurant. But I found that without people even knowing that we were, like, that the establishment is ran by a transgender person, I had a lot of trans people coming there and feeling a lot more comfortable there, and joining us and feeling comfortable with it. So it's beautiful.
Oh yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
because they see
There
that I'm,
isn't a whole lot of these
yeah.
spaces around, you know?
I mean, just to educate somebody on sometimes a lesbian person just looks very masculine,
Mhm,
but they still go by the pronouns she.
mhm.
But then sometimes there's also a hypermasculine lesbian looking person, but you didn't know that person is actually transitioning from female to male.
Mhm.
So if you were to call this person she, that could set a trigger
Yeah, yeah,
from a past that they're now moving away from.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so it's just like those are the small things that I had my staff realize, that all anybody who they are.
yeah. That's great. So, what would you say was one of the most important things you learned about yourself in therapy or because of therapy?
Um,
I'm sure there's a
I
lot.
think so. Well, no, because I'm trying to think, because I think in therapy is actually different than because of therapy. So
Okay.
I
Well, answer
actually,
both.
huh?
You can
Yeah.
answer
So
both.
in therapy, something that I learned for myself is something that I said earlier, is that a lot of the questions that I do have and feel the need answered is actually within myself. Sometimes it just takes a couple of steps and the the correct conversation to get to the answer.
Yes.
Um, so sometimes we have to pause and take our time and allow ourselves time to learn that answer,
Yes.
because we're not going to have that answer right away.
Yes.
So that is something that I learned in
It's a
therapy.
process. Yeah.
Yes. And then something that I learned because of therapy is that I have to take the time for myself to do this, because the benefits of it have really done so beautifully
Mm-hmm.
for myself as a person, um, personally and professionally, but as well as an LGBTQ person who wants to be a person who's living a purposeful life. So we have to take the time to go to therapy. We have to take the time to schedule the schedule alone. Like, you know, pause, make sure that we have our schedule on, make sure that we have this in here, make sure that and also in between therapy, make sure that we're constantly checking in on ourselves.
Yeah.
How you doing, girl?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at right now?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's something because of therapy.
Wow.
Because of therapy, I saw that I'm important enough
Yes.
to be
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and to have that attunement with yourself,
Uh-huh.
you know, when it's I'm good, I'm taking a break from therapy, and to know when you need to go back, maybe,
Yeah.
you know, and get some tune-ups or new issues are arising.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about just in general, like in life? What do you think keeps you in forward motion? You know, what helps you stay hopeful?
The thing that pushes me is my family because I want to make sure that I'm doing, that I'm going to be there for them and that I'm repaying um, all the sacrifices they did for me. Like, I want to do well because of them.
Mhm.
Um, Moving forward with my community, because the same thing again, the way that my community was there for me is now my time to be there for them.
Mhm.
But even up until this day, they're still here for me right when I need a little lift.
Yeah,
They're here to lift me up. And then tomorrow I'm gonna repay it, pay it forward
yeah.
and give that back to them. And then for me personally, is that I still have so many dreams. So if we don't stay positive, if we don't stay in a good headspace and a good heart space, it's only going to set us back
Mhm.
from getting closer to our dreams. So I'm like, a lot of times, if my group of girlfriends, drag queens, trans, are always like, "Girl, you've done it already." I'm like, "No, I'm like, I'm still gonna get married. I'm gonna have kids. And then after that, I'm gonna open up another restaurant, and then I'm gonna open up a bar, and then I'm gonna open up a nightclub, and then I'm gonna buy my mom a nice car, and then I'm gonna buy my dad a really, really crazy sports car that he probably won't drive because he'll be too old by then. And then, like, no, but because what happens, I think, with a lot of life is once you reach a certain point, a lot of people around you will tell you that you've done it,
You've arrived.
you've arrived. I'm like, no, girl,
Mhm.
no one should ever arrive. Like, well, I think everyone, like, I think actually, no, no one should ever.
It's good to arrive, but
It's
doesn't
good to
mean
arrive,
you
but
can't keep
if
growing.
we're gonna say, because when somebody says you arrive, they feel like, it goes to the term of you've done it. But if we're gonna think about you arrive as like, I am here,
Yeah.
so which means me being here is me being here, and I'm gonna be here fabulously. Then yes, I have arrived, and we're gonna do
I'm
that.
gonna be here
We're gonna
fabulously. I
do
love
that.
that.
But I don't want that. I don't want it to be an end game for anybody.
Yes,
Once we've reached
yes,
a certain point of our life,
yeah.
we should always, you know, we can be content,
Yep.
but of course we can always still be inspired to look for more and
Yeah.
to imagine for
In a
more,
state of
dream for more.
expansion while
Yeah,
also being content. I think that
yeah,
would be if that's the best of both worlds.
uh-huh,
If you could get to that spot, you know, emotionally and
yeah.
mentally. Oh, I love this interview. I love talking to
Ah,
you. Thank you so much for
you and
sharing
I can
your
talk
time.
forever, honey.
I know, I know. Thank you so much for your time, for your
Of course.
service, for your advocacy, for your courage, and just for all the love and kindness, you know, that you are
I appreciate it.
sprinkling
I mean,
throughout
you
the
what
planet.
you're doing, destigmatizing and having the conversation is so important, and you're bringing such a good platform to it. So
Oh,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it so
I
much.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Now you have to
and
come and
so
visit me, okay?
yes, I definitely will. I was just gonna say that offline. I'm like, I'm gonna come see you, girl.
Right? But now I'm gonna have to make sure that I take the night off if you do come visit me because I have a feeling that you and I would end up talking forever.
I
I
know.
would not be able to get any work done.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely let you know. So,
Aw,
yeah. Well, thank you again.
thank you
Um,
again.
and I can't wait for the world to see this. So,
Aw,
hopefully,
I
we'll
love it.
reach more
Here's to you with you.
hearts. You too. Bye for now.